According to Zelensky, Putin's landmines are stalling the counteroffensive. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Vladimir Putin's forces of laying dangerous minefields, conceding that progress in Ukraine's offensive against Russian forces was less than expected. The Russian president, meanwhile, says Moscow has seen a moderate in the attack on Kyiv, which has captured 8 cities in the past 2 weeks, as he admits he understands that Kyiv has no chance against its army. Maud, despite his words, said the Putin administration was concerned about Kyiv's ability to attack Crimea directly, strengthening fortifications near the peninsula. The assessment was announced when RAF warplanes intercepted a Russian military aircraft and 2 warplanes flying near NATO airspace in Estonia and did not comply with international law without communication with regional air traffic control, officials said. At a London conference aimed at raising money to rebuild Ukraine, Rishi Sunak said EU President Ursula von der Leyen, "There is no doubt Kyiv will join the EU." Main article: Ukraine mass defense attacks near Bakhmut and Lyman. Vladimir Putin's forces build improved defenses near Crimea 2 weeks ago. Putin's 4 jets attack live helicopter shot down last week Kyiv missile. Ukraine says there are 4 targets in Crimea. UK may be very supportive of Ukraine in important steps to join NATO. Smart. 1456, Andy Gregory. British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly, Ukraine. He said the UK would be very supportive if membership plans to join NATO. Speaking at the press conference of the Ukraine Rescue Conference in London, we see that Ukraine is developing and growing at an incredible pace. Forward, the work of the UK will be very well supported, confirming this proposal. Sweden and Finland do not want this, and the Ukrainians, NATO, they showed their determination to reform the army to meet the needs of their members from their work in combating one another. And I think all NATO allies know that. Ukrainian military attack is slow to return from Russian space. This is because the Russian army's response to the Ukrainian counteroffensive has raised alarm and the number of victims has increased. The Wall Street Journal reported in its 19th that Ukrainian military leaders have suspended the gap in various regions in recent days and then reassessed the strategy when they encountered difficulties in finding resistance. It lasts for a long time and is not very watery, said. The United States considers that the Institute of War, ISW, said in a military statement on the same day, 19, that the Ukrainian military may temporarily suspend any offensive review ideas for future work. But ISW said that suspension of operations is an act of serious aggression and does not indicate the end of the Ukrainian counteroffensive. Ukraine has not yet committed most of the strong defensive insurgency measures and has not started main work, said. Good protection of the Russian army in the south. The British Ministry of Defense said on the 19th that Russia felt good after the attack on Ukraine and caused many casualties on both sides. The Ministry of Defense said that the Ukrainian army has made little progress in its offensive in Zaporizhzhia and Bakhmut, but the Russian army is still conducting good defensive operations in the south. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky acknowledged that the war would not be easy. In some areas our troops are advancing, In other areas they are defending their positions or fighting the resistance of the inhabitants of Russia, he said in a video speech on the 19th of video. Dataref equals https://www.facebook.com/Zelensky official/videos/633320752192591/. In a phone call on the 20th, Ukraine's Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar said, "There are many targets in the ongoing operation. The army needs to do this work. The biggest attack has not happened yet. To be released." He added, "The enemy will not leave their position easily and we must prepare for a fierce battle." Lack of Air Force support. According to the analysis, the situation facing the Ukrainian army is due to the lack of air power, which is more important for modern warfare and was unable to break through the defensive lines of the Russian mines. Ukraine always wants the West. The country has stepped up to support the F-16, but full support is not yet complete. Other resources, including personnel and equipment, appear to be inadequate. There is a doctrine associated with the classic attack game that requires the attacker to have a 3-to-1 advantage in men and weapons. Theoretically, although inevitable, the offense can only be successful if it has at least a 2-to-1 advantage. However, Ukraine currently does not have the resources to compete with Russia. In addition, Eastern European media reported that 10% of the weapons supplied by the West were lost as a result of this operation. Ukrainian forces have the advantage of fatigue and morale, while Russia's advantage is physical lines of defense, air power and fire equipment versus electric warfare equipment, the Wall Street Journal noted. The Western Army said landmines are particularly protective against Russia. Therefore, the most important factor determining the future nature of war is the resources to prevent war. Western aid has become a priority for Ukraine. North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg, at the meeting held in Berlin, the capital of Germany on the 19th, said, "We have run out of weapons and ammunition stocks, not only in Germany, but also in many NATO countries." More. North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg, left, and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz hold a joint meeting in Berlin on the 19th. "We did not discuss the invitation to Ukraine to be sent to Ukraine in preparation for the next NATO meeting and the meeting scheduled for May." In Vilnius, Lithuania, Olaf Scholz said on the same day, 19. "How can we bring Ukraine closer to NATO?" he said. Chancellor Scholz spoke about this on the occasion of the 2008 conference in Bucharest, Romania. NATO really welcomed the request of Ukraine and Georgia to join at that time, but after delaying membership, this was the case. First, Stoltenberg demanded that a law be passed for Ukraine to join NATO, which U.S. President Joe Biden opposed. Watch, NATO chief, all members agreed to join Ukraine. Question is, President Biden asks journalist if NATO meeting in Ukraine would be easy before he leaves for Philadelphia, Pennsylvania overcame obstacles while answering no. 2020 for the first campaign of the presidential election is on the 17th. Ukraine, like other member states, must meet the standards and I will not make it easy, he said. Ukraine has done its best to demonstrate military cooperation, said President Biden, but we need to see what it can do to the same standards as other NATO members, such as whether its machines are safe. It's not illegal. President Biden said, I think Ukraine can meet the standard, but it's not automatic. Principle of mutual defense. Distrust between Sweden and Finland after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Finland joined NATO in April as the 31st member since its entry into NATO. After occupying the space. NATO Charter. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is at war with Ukraine, which states that an attack on a member state is considered an attack to all its allies and provides support, including the use of force. Russia looks forward to the political decision of its member states that their countries will join NATO after the war, although it may be difficult to join NATO immediately. NATO recruits new members with the consent of all existing members, but it is difficult for a warring Ukraine to be admitted as a member due to the principle of joint protection. For this reason, some people criticize NATO as a military alliance that only accepts countries with a low risk of military action as members. The regional governor said that Russian troops retreated to prevent Ukrainian attacks and blew up bridges near Kherson. Vitaly Kim, the governor of the Nikolaev region, said in a message on Telegram that Russia is protected. They are afraid of the attack of the Ukrainian army, he wrote. Part of the Nikolaev region, which has been under the control of Russian forces in recent days, is close to the Russian-controlled city of Kherson. President Volodymyr Zelensky said in his evening speech that Ukraine has achieved some success in Kherson.